Welcome to Sheltered Homeschooler Reads Harry Potter Book 7. Like the movies, I will be breaking my videos into two parts. Let's jump right into some spoilers. By which I mean these will only be spoilers if you are the only other person in the world besides myself who has not yet read Harry Potter. Like I knew through cultural osmosis that Dumbledore was gonna die, but still seriously, like Dumbledore died. Dumbledore died. Dumbledore died. At least I think he did. I'm only halfway through this book, so it's kind of hard to tell. And in a very interesting trick of narration, even though his character is ostensibly dead, he continues to live on in the story through Reedus Key writing a book about him, Harry finding documents that he wrote, and all this other backstory that allows him to be a continuing part of the final book. Which brings us to another question. Is Dumbledore bad? And why are the bangs on this side of my forehead so short? So as you know, my parents didn't allow me to read Harry Potter as a child. Really, I think because the books hadn't survived the test of time. They had not existed long enough to become classics, to become a part of the Western world canon, to become a living embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. And because fundamentally they knew this is a series in which the heroes are witches and wizards. And since in some fictional universes those characters are the bad characters, I think my parents and people like them who assumed there were certain problems, morally speaking, with the Harry Potter series were thinking that that meant that there was a moral ambiguity within the Harry Potter universe. But upon reading the books, of course, I've discovered that not to be the case at all. Instead of what I think my parents imagined, which is where we were like rooting for these demonically possessed anti-hero wizards as they did evil things. The entire narrative essentially takes place within the wizarding world, in which there are two sides, a very obvious good and a very obvious bad side. And other than one notable exception, Snape, it's very clear at any one time that there are good people and there are bad people, and they are fighting each other in a battle to the death, based on moral grounds. And in that sense, I think that parents like mine 50 years from now will probably encourage their children to read Harry Potter. And yes, I realize that Dumbledore's backstory in this book is about, oh, like, did he have a bad side earlier in his life? But it's not presented from the perspective of like, oh, he was bad, but we still liked him when he was bad. It's not like, oh, he's a drug dealer who's killing people, but he has cancer and he's using the money to buy his chemotherapy drugs. Or like, oh, he was a serial killer, but he had this code where he only killed other serial killers. Now I'm halfway through the book, so I don't know yet exactly what the backstory of Dumbledore was, but it's clear that if he was bad at some point, he was on the wrong side. Like, we're rooting against that, and we want him to come back to the good side, where of course we know he ends up, and we want him to be redeemed. But is Snape good or bad? That I don't know, and of course that is a central mystery of the book. My parents probably wouldn't have liked that part of the book, because, you know, morally ambiguous fictional characters are bad for young, impressionable minds. Speaking of mysteries and moral ambiguity, what happened to this part of my hair was that I lost it in an unfortunate cigar lighting accident. Yes, YouTube, I lit my hair on fire. I posted this picture afterwards. As you can see, my hair turned orange and was all curly and singed and smelled terrible. Many people, of course, replied saying, Josh, you're a motivational speaker, you can't talk about tobacco. So let me clarify, I'm above the age of 18. It was a special occasion. Don't smoke, don't do drugs, stay in school. If you practice magic, make sure it's not dark magic. Don't drink fire whiskey until you are of age, which appears to be 17. Although butterbeer you can drink much younger. I think maybe the first time they drank butterbeer was either 12 or 13. And don't try to tell me that butterbeer doesn't have alcohol in it. We know it does because that house elf, remember, gets drunk off of it, and they say like, oh, it's not very strong, but for a house elf, it's enough. And so my friends, we end this video on many cliffhangers. Is Snape good or bad? Did Dumbledore once practice dark magic? Will Harry once again get to snog Ginny? UK people, do you guys really say snogging for kissing? How long will it take for these bangs to grow back? What will happen to Greece's economy? Who will run the AMAs on Reddit? And what is the Don't Judge Challenge? Some of these questions will be resolved in the second half of the book and answered in my next and final Harry Potter video. Until then, we should hang out some time and stay away from tobacco. AMPUTEE!